Sometimes when learning a language, we spend years learning from textbooks or in classrooms, and when we visit the country where the language is spoken, what we hear sounds very, very different to what we've learnt. And I'm not just talking about pronunciation, I'm talking about the phrases that native speakers use. And the thing is, the things that you're saying might not be wrong, they're just not natural to a native speaker. And that is what we're focusing on in this lesson. We're going to look at 16 phrases that native speakers really say, and 16 phrases that native speakers rarely say that you might have actually learnt. And if you want to learn even more about this lesson, there is a free PDF for you to download by clicking on the link in the description. Hello, you wonderful people. Welcome to English Right Now. My name is Roy, your British English teacher, and I've been a teacher of English for nearly 15 years. And over that time, I've helped thousands of students like you understand British English, British culture, and of course, a modern British RP accent. And then in this lesson, we're focusing on things, well, I won't say 16 phrases that native English speakers never say, because from time to time they may say it, but we're talking about the things that you've learned that you think are normal, but are actually relatively rare. And we're talking about the general population in normal conversation. The first one is this one. So do I. You learn that we often use this when we're agreeing. I like chocolate. So do I. I'm from the UK. So am I. And when we're agreeing with a negative statement, you hear that we say things like neither do I and neither am I. But the truth is, these structures are actually quite formal for us, and we don't really use it. We commonly use me too when we're agreeing with something. I like chocolate. Oh, me too. I've seen countless videos on social media teaching you never say me too. Why not? We do it all the time. I like chocolate. Me too. I play video games. Me too. I'm from the UK. Me too. It's kind of a cover-all phrase for just general agreement. And when we're agreeing with a negative statement, informally, we might say me neither or me neither, depending on the pronunciation of that final word, as a way of responding. So, for example, I don't like that film. Yeah, me neither. Or me neither. And that's absolutely fine. However, I'm going to go even further, and even when agreeing with negative statements, a lot of native speakers say me too as well. I didn't like that film. Yeah, me too. Now, I could reiterate for nearly every one of the 16 points on this list that what you've learnt isn't wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying so do I, so am I, neither do I. And if you're doing an exam, I absolutely implore you to use the correct grammar. It just doesn't sound like everyday communication. So if you're speaking informally with a British person or in English, you can use me too. And the reason a lot of these social media videos say, oh, never say this, is because it's a really good hook to get you to listen to the video. Never say me too, say so do I. Well, why not? And by the way, if you're wondering, if you've not learnt it already, why there are 16 examples on this list, and not 20, not 30, not 10. Well, it's actually just because I like the number 16. Number 2 is about question tags. Now, there is nothing wrong with saying, it's good, isn't it? Or you live there, don't you? Native speakers also use these typical question tags like isn't it and don't you, and so on, so on. But quite commonly, you will hear a native speaker replace these with the word right. This is something you've quite possibly learnt in the classroom is wrong, that it is wrong to say it's good, right? Or you live there, right? But native speakers do it all the time. Now, I will also say, yes, native speakers also say, isn't it, and don't you, and that's good, isn't it? Sometimes we shorten it down and make it sound more like an innit. It's good, innit? In casual, everyday chat, a lot of native speakers will use the word right. Now, if you're doing an exam, something like IELTS, I recommend that you use the correct grammatical structure. It's good, isn't it? You live there, don't you? I absolutely do that. But if you're on the streets of the UK, be prepared to hear something you've possibly learnt is wrong. Number 3 is something that's not wrong, but also not right, which is not really clear, is it? But this one is I have a doubt. Now, I totally understand what this means. If you say this to any native speaker, they'll probably also understand. But the thing is, the word doubt is pretty strong. It means to not trust or not believe in something. So, aliens. Do aliens exist? Some people will say, yes, I believe they exist. And others will say they doubt they exist. This means that they don't believe it. It's really, really strong for us. And likewise, if we think that somebody is lying, we may say we doubt they are telling the truth. This one is definitely a phrase I would avoid. If you use this, I would drop this immediately. Like I say, it's not wrong because I'll understand it. It's just no native speaker would ever say it. What would we say instead? I have a question, or I'm not sure about something. So if I explain a grammatical rule, you could say, oh, I'm not sure about this part. Fine. Or I have a question about this part. Do not say I have a doubt. Number 4 is about natural English. So let's talk about the word sitting. Sitting is the present participle of the verb to sit. I am sitting on a chair. Absolutely fine. That is completely grammatically correct. However, a lot of native speakers use the word sat when they want to say sitting. This is what we call natural English. Now, not all native speakers will do this, but in my experience, the vast majority of speakers do. So instead of saying, I am sitting here, I could say, I'm sat here. So look at this sentence. I was sitting in the park when the bus came. That is a pretty standard sentence that you're going to learn in a textbook. Well, maybe not the exact situation, but you know what I mean. Whereas a native speaker might say, I was sat in the park when the bus came. That has just become a very natural part of informal English. So maybe you're looking for somebody who's waiting for you at the train station. You maybe ring them on the phone. You say, I can't find you. Where are you? And they may say, I'm sat on the bench near the waiting room. Again, I would probably try to use sitting, in this case, in an exam, but just be prepared for how native speakers really speak. Number 5 is something that could be really funny / maybe a bit of a faux pas. Okay, sometimes when we're not feeling well or we're feeling a bit mentally unbalanced, we say in natural speech, just not feeling myself today. This is when we don't feel right and we don't feel normal. It's a common expression in the UK. How are you feeling? I'm not really feeling myself today. And that is absolutely fine to use. The problem comes when students, in my experience, put it into the positive. They say, today I'm feeling myself. And that doesn't sound right in English. Native speakers don't tend to put this expression into the positive exactly like that. Why not? Well, it sounds a bit like, prepare your ears, sorry about this, masturbation. If you are feeling yourself, it sounds incredibly sexual. So a lot of native speakers say for the negative, I'm not feeling myself, but when they're feeling better, they'll say something like, I'm feeling better, or I'm feeling more like myself today. There is nothing technically wrong with saying, I'm feeling myself today. It just doesn't sound natural. So be very careful of that one. I might have just saved you some embarrassment or brought up a memory from the past that you think, oh gosh, I actually said that. Next up, we have goodbye. Some people will say goodbye. Native speakers sometimes will say goodbye. But what's wrong with this word? Well, this is really, really formal. Goodbye. It sounds very like I'm never going to see you again. I will never speak to you again. Goodbye. The thing is, in natural conversation, native speakers tend to avoid the more formal options. So instead of goodbye, by the way, there is nothing wrong with saying that. It just sounds a bit intense. They probably say something like, see you later, or bye. See you later doesn't necessarily mean later that day. I have had an awkward situation where I said, see you later, and the person said, no, not today. And I thought, oh no, I was just trying to say goodbye. I became formal upon the correction. Now, as well, with things like good morning and good afternoon, yeah, some people will say it, particularly in formal environments, but more naturally, they'll say morning or you're right in everyday chat. And now we have one that you've probably learned right at the start of your English language journey. My name is. Very rarely do I hear British English native speakers saying my name is. Hello, my name is Roy. Maybe if they're giving some kind of presentation to a group, hello everybody, my name is Roy. But naturally, and even then, most people just say I'm. Again, not wrong, but just not as natural as I'm. When we're talking about other people's names, though, we do quite commonly use this structure. We could say something like her name's, or her name is, or his name is. But when we're talking about ourselves, we usually gravitate towards I'm rather than my name is. There is nothing wrong with saying may, like I may go or I may do it later. But the simple truth is this word is pretty formal and it's less common than it once was. Using words like might or could, far more natural. Again, a lot of native speakers may say may, They're more likely to say something like might say may or they could say may in natural conversation. Again, it's not wrong. It just sounds a little bit formal. And especially when asking a question like, may I help you? Or may I ask a question? It's more natural to say, can I ask a question? Or could I ask a question? Nothing wrong with this word. It's just less common than you probably learnt in the classroom. And remember, if you want to learn even more about this lesson, you can download, or you may download, it just doesn't sound right, a free PDF by clicking the link in the description below. But let's move on to not at all. I hear quite a few students saying not at all. Is there anything wrong with it? No. It's just not something that we naturally say. It just sounds really, really formal. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, not at all. It just sounds like a bit of a performance, like a formal performance. And it's not something you're going to hear on the streets of the UK very commonly. More naturally, we'll say something like, you're welcome, or my pleasure. So the thing is, with this one, the warning here is you may be using it far more than native speakers actually do. In fact, I've done a whole video on things people say instead of you're welcome. Not at all, I think, did crop up in there, but I just gave you a lot of other options as well. Moving on, we have one that makes total sense that I don't think I've ever heard a native speaker say. Rarely, if ever, to be honest. And that is, please repeat. Now, if you say this to someone, they will understand. They will know that you are asking them to repeat what they've just said. The simple truth is, while this makes perfect sense, we just have more natural ways of saying the same thing. Like, for example, could you say that again? Or could you repeat that, please? Now, like I say, there is nothing wrong with saying that. It's perfectly polite. It's just not what we would say. Moving on, we have the word fine. We're going to talk about this over the next 2 points, but fine is a pretty loaded word in the UK. You commonly learn the word fine to talk about how you're doing. We're going to talk about that, as I say, but I would say we need to be careful with this word because fine quite commonly means acceptable or only just kind of okay. If you go to a restaurant and somebody says, how was your food? And you just say, oh, fine. It's like it's nothing special, nothing amazing, but it's just at the point of being okay. And if somebody says, how are you? Fine. It's like you're not brilliant, you're not doing really well, you're just kind of shutting down the conversation to say you are barely surviving. Also, it depends very much on the tone. We also use it as a kind of dismissive acceptance at times. I'm going to do this. Oh, fine, whatever. Again, it's all about the tone. So there is a lot to say about this word, but this isn't the focus of this lesson. What we're going to talk about is 2 examples of using the word fine that you've been taught or potentially are using that just isn't as natural as you think. The first one is when somebody asks, how are you? Quite commonly, right at the start of your English journey, students are taught, I am fine, thank you, and you. There's a lot going on here. I am fine, thank you, and you. I am fine, thank you, and you. You have a whole room. I once walked into a classroom. The students were sitting, not sat, I'm trying to be correct. The students were sitting in the room, and I said, good morning, everybody, how are you? And then there was just this robotic chorus of, I'm fine, thank you, and you. And I was like, whoa. That's the point where I changed the whole course of the lesson and started teaching them different answers to how are you? Like, I'm all right, or I'm okay. Yeah, good, thanks. Things like this. Now, I've done a whole lesson on how to respond to how are you in English. You can find the link in the description. And actually, I've seen some students seem to get into a loop, like, I'm fine, thank you, and you. Oh, I'm fine, thank you, and you. Oh, I'm fine, thank you, and you. It's like a kind of endless circle if we're not careful and we don't break it. But while there's nothing actually wrong with saying, I'm fine, thank you, and you, it's just not as common as you're probably led to believe through the lessons that you've learned. And then moving on to another point related to fine is, are you fine? I've never heard a native speaker say, are you fine? It just doesn't happen. Are you okay? Are you all right? Absolutely. I have heard students say, good morning, are you fine? Doesn't really happen. Nothing technically wrong with it, but it's a bit like that I have a doubt situation where I understand it just doesn't really work. It's like somebody saying chips and fish or pepper and salt instead of the ways we actually say it of fish and chips and salt and pepper. Not wrong, but just doesn't sound like something we would say. And now we're starting to move to a few points where you might start to think, do British people know their own language? Yep, we do, but what you've learnt may be very different to the way we use it. So there are a few points over the next few that I'm going to say be very, very careful. But the first is, I've heard a lot of students say, oh, what is your favourite rock band? Or what is your favourite British rock band? Nothing wrong with that. It's just naturally we tend to use the pronoun who. It's like we're thinking more about the people than the kind of entity itself, so we naturally say, who is your favourite band? And this bleeds into football teams. Now, if we use the structure, which football team do you support? That's absolutely fine, but quite commonly, down the pub, somebody will say, who's your team? Who is your team? Who? Derby County, in my case. You can let me know which football team you like and also which rock band you like. Notice I didn't answer that question because there are so many bands I love. Everything from Pink Floyd to The Prodigy, even to Metallica. Absolutely love music, so I couldn't really pick. Some native speakers may say, what is your team? But they're more naturally likely to say, who is your team? Or who's your football team? And next up, there is one that comes with a bit of a warning. So you may have learned something like my friend and I as a subject for a sentence. That's absolutely correct. If you're in an exam, use it in this way. My friend and I, Rob and I, we record a podcast. Rob and I have recorded a podcast. My wife and I live together. This is grammatically perfectly correct. Please, if you are in exams, use it with this structure. The thing is, though, a lot of native speakers, instead of saying, Rob and I have recorded a podcast, they will say, me and Rob. Me and my friend are going down the pub. This is not correct. You should say, my friends and I are going to the pub. It just sounds a little bit too formal. So in an exam situation, please use the correct grammatical structure. But naturally, a lot of us don't. And here is another good example of grammar versus natural. Less and fewer. Less is commonly used with uncountable nouns. Less time, for example. Whereas fewer is used for countable nouns. Fewer chickens, fewer people. That is absolutely clear, and that is exactly how you should use that in an exam situation. So what's wrong with these two? Well, quite commonly, native speakers use less for both in informal chats. Exam, use it correctly, but just be aware that a lot of native speakers will use less, whether it's uncountable or countable. I've got less time to see less people. And that kind of bleeds into another point, which could have been point 17 of 16, and that is about comparatives. Now, when we're comparing two nouns, we use a comparative adjective, for example, quicker. So I should say, she is a quicker runner than Dave. But when we're comparing two actions, two verbs, we use the comparative adverb. This is grammatically correct, more quickly. And in fact, in an exam, you should absolutely do this. She finished more quickly than Dave. And that is absolutely grammatically correct. You should use that in an exam. Noun, comparative adjective, verb, comparative adverb. Absolutely fine. The thing is that native speakers tend to use quicker for both. They'll say, she's a quicker runner, or I ate quicker than him, or I finished the project quicker than him. Again, use the grammatically correct version in an exam, but a lot of native speakers just use the comparative adjective pretty much all the time. And now we have probably arguably the most controversial one. I've saved the most controversial one till last. Technically not last because I'm going to give you another bonus. The word well to answer the question, how are you? There is nothing wrong with this. A lot of native speakers use the word well, but they commonly use it with another word. I'm very well. I'm really well. The thing is, I've heard students say, how are you? I'm well. There's nothing wrong with that. Some native speakers will talk like that, but quite commonly, they'll answer it in another way, and more naturally, a lot of them will say, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Now, there's a whole debate of which is correct, but I'm just telling you how we speak. And no, it's not more American to say, I'm good. How are you? I'm good. It's just really, really natural for a British person to use the word good. Nothing wrong with saying, I'm well, but a lot of native speakers will say, I'm good. Some native speakers may absolutely hate that, but it's really, really common to hear. And I promised you a bonus one, raining cats and dogs. Oh, raining cats and dogs. This one is really commonly taught in the classroom. It's when it's raining very heavily. How was the weather today? It's raining cats and dogs. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. It's just I very, very rarely hear native speakers say it's raining cats and dogs. I often hear a lot of students overusing it, saying, oh, today it is raining cats and dogs. Last week it was raining cats and dogs. No. We don't use it that commonly. If we ever use it, it is honestly once in a blue moon. That's an idiom we do tend to use. It's the same idea with it's not my cup of tea. That's not used as much as it's taught. Although some native speakers do say, yeah, it's not really my cup of tea. What do we say instead? Well, instead of it's raining cats and dogs, we say things like it's pouring, it's chucking it down, it's throwing it down. These are more natural things to say. It's a bit shorter than it's raining cats and dogs, which sounds a bit like a performance. And while some native speakers may say, it's not my cup of tea, they often say, yeah, it's not really my thing, or it's not my sort of thing. Now, there's a whole lesson I want to do on what I call the idiom trap, where students seem to fall into this trap of using the wrong idioms or using them incorrectly. There's a whole lesson coming down the line that I would like to do on that. But please do remember there is a free PDF for you to download to learn even more about this lesson. But from me today, I just want to say thank you very much for spending your time with me. Hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.